Hello everyone, my name is Michael Mudjar and I'm doing my research under Dr. Lombach and Dr. Black, and my research project is going to be about childhood asthma, stress and its effects on cortisol and exhaled nitric oxide. So this is how I'm going to go through my presentation, starting with the background. So to start with the background, I'll talk a little bit about childhood asthma. So asthma is a chronic inflammatory disease affecting 9.3% of the children in America, which equates to 6.8 million children in America. And that usually requires daily medication like albuterol and Flovin, which I'll explain a bit later. Asthma symptoms like shortness of breath, wheezing, and cough are all very stress-inducing symptoms. And studies show that psychological stress can make asthma worse, especially in the inner city. And that's a lot of the basis of this project, because we end up studying on children in Newark and Elizabeth. And this stress activates the sympathetic adrenomedullary axis and the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis. The SAM is more the fight or flight, more of the fast acting, and that's where albuterol affects it a bit more. However, the HPA is more of a long-term acting, and inhaled corticosteroids like Flovin affect it a bit more. So to go on with the HPA axis, salivary cortisol. Cortisol is a hormone released by the HPA axis when experiencing stress. Cortisol has a potent anti-inflammatory effect to counteract the effects of asthma. So asthmatics usually have higher levels of cortisol because of that, compared to people without asthma. And the salivary cortisol is taken from cortisol and plasma. Our next parameter, exhaled nitric oxide. Exhaled nitric oxide is a marker of pulmonary inflammation. Usually people with higher ENO correlates to asthma. Likewise, ENO is elevated in asthma, but it's reduced with the use of inhaled corticosteroids like Flovin. And like cortisol, an acute stress response elevates ENO levels. So this is how we induce that, by the trier-social stress test. It's used to induce acute stress responses to the children, which are then collected by salivary cortisol samples. It provides a way to measure the change in ENO and cortisol before and after an acute stress response. The acute stress response, they first start with a 5-minute presentation where they're given a story and they have to finish it. After that, they have a mental arithmetic portion where they have to count backwards from 703 in multiples of 7. The most stress-inducing part of it, though, is that they're being watched throughout the whole presentation. And they're told when they're wrong. Now, our hypothesis is, if a child with asthma undergoes an acute stressor, then levels of cortisol and exhaled nitric oxide should rise. And this is how we measure it. We recruit children with asthma aged from 9 to 14 from urban environments like Newark and Elizabeth in non-smoking homes. Then we put them through a 30-day monitoring period where we measure their cortisol levels, their ENO levels, their air pollution levels, and their spirometry, other spirometry parameters. And then in the middle of it, of the 30-day period, they come in and they undergo the trier-social stress test to see how their responses to stress may interact with responses to air pollution. And this is how we measure the salivary cortisol, through ELISA's salimetrics. It's a sensitive and specific way to measure the concentration of salivary cortisol, much like any other ELISA. And all we do is we get the samples, we pipette them into a 96-plate assay, we incubate for a bit, wash for a bit, then we put it in a plate reader, and then we get our concentration back. However, with exhaled nitric oxide, you don't read it the same way. It's measured with a Neox-Mino, a handheld device where you just put over your mouth, you breathe through, and then you get your exhaled nitric oxide results. Very easy to use, especially for the children. And the changes in salivary cortisol and ENO before and after the trier-social stress test are analyzed through ANOVA statistics and within subjects' paired t-tests. And here are results. Starting with the demographics. We only had 31 subjects for the study. There are more males than females, most of them being Hispanic. There are about 6 African Americans, 2 Caucasians. The the average age was 10.6, which made sense because our age range is from 9 to 14. But what interested me the most was the amount of people that were below poverty level, with over 50%. And there were also a lot of people who didn't even put their income. But this is where we've all been waiting for, the salivary cortisol results. So there are 3 measurements before the stress test and 4 measurements after. The 4th, as you can see, is definitely the highest. It's because it's taken immediately after the stress test. And there's an increase between the 3rd and the 4th by 65%. However, it wasn't statistically significant, sadly, because there was a lot of variance in right after the test. And all 31 subjects we got the cortisol from them. However, with exhaled nitric oxide, it wasn't the same. With exhaled nitric oxide, it's also highest after the triad test. The T4 is the highest by a little. However, the change is also not statistically significant. But a lot of that has to do with there only being 9 samples measured out of the 31. Now, what other studies have discovered, that psychosocial stressors cause short-term increases in exhaled nitric oxides with adults with asthma. The only difference between their study and ours is that they're studying adults and we're studying children. I don't see there really being that much of a change in their significance in ours. The only thing that I see the problem with ours is that we don't have enough subjects yet. However, differences in individual responses to the stress test happen because some people deal with stress differently than others. As you saw from the cortisol results, there was a lot of variability right after the test. It's because some people, some of the children ended up being really impacted by the stress and they spiked up. However, there are some people that only had a small increase in cortisol, and there were some people that actually didn't care about the stress test and they had lower levels of cortisol than before the stress test. And why this study matters is we recognize the effects of a stressful environment and what that means to asthmatics. This allows for more insight on what can be done to reduce the effects of asthma in vulnerable children in environments like Newark and Elizabeth, because they have a lot of stressors. Finally, in conclusion, in our SURE study, when undergoing an acute stress response, the increase in ENO and cortisol was insignificant. However, there were no problems with recruiting and monitoring the subjects, demonstrating the feasibility of the approach of the project, which means in time, we will get more subjects, and hopefully having more subjects will provide for more statistical, more powerful data. Another thing to analyze is how the pollution levels affect children's asthma. However, I know my mentor, Dr. Lombach, is analyzing that in his main study. This is a small portion of that study. Lastly, the best part, I want to thank my mentors, Dr. Lombach and Dr. Black, for showing me everything about research these 10 weeks. I would have been lost without them. I also want to thank the SURF program, Dr. Artsunis, Dr. Laskin, Stephanie, and Regina. Although you guys heard it so many times, thank you for this opportunity. I've never had any research opportunity or work experience at all, so I was really grateful for every experience throughout these 10 weeks. I also want to thank Dr. Gordon for shedding me some light on research. Without her, I also wouldn't have been here. And I also want to thank the NIH for funding me, because with them, I also wouldn't be here either. And I also want to thank the Yoshi family, Dan, Dr. Kippen, Clara Mel, Alan, Shanaz, some residents in the back, Yvonne, Boris. Thank you guys so much. And now, do you guys have any questions?
Is there any sort of like control, like maybe non-asthmatics with the stress test, or like the not stress test and before and after?
So there wasn't a control, because that would be actually a lot of money to end up getting controlled also. But there were a lot of studies out there done before without asthmatics. So this is just, you could just compare it between the two. Any more questions?
Do you really think not significant and insignificant are the same?
Oh no, I meant not significant.
Okay.
I said insignificant.
Okay.
Yeah. Actually, when I was practicing, I picked picked that up a couple times. I'm sorry. Yeah.
So you also said feasibility was good, but you only got 9 of your subjects to use the exhale the no. Was that because it was difficult with the machine, or it was
Oh
difficult
no,
for them
because
to use it?
we actually started that a bit later than,
Okay, so
than the
it's just
beginning. Yeah.
it was hard for them to do it.
No. It's actually like super easy to do it. Just breathe through and that's it. All right. Any more?
Do you know what is the cortisol's circadian rhythm throughout the day in children as adults?
I don't know, but I know the person I was doing research with, Dan might know. He was doing circadian rhythms, but I have no idea about it. I'm sorry. But I'll get back to you.
What was the question?
Circadian rhythm of cortisol in children versus adults.
I don't know that.